All right, welcome everyone to the May BayICT Tech Talk, and I'm Olivia Hereford. I'm one of the regional directors for the BACC that covers the ICT digital media sector. And I'm pretty excited about this talk because it is actually our first tech talk that actually focuses on the digital media side of the sector. We've tend to have a really focus on the ICT part. So, and we've got some really exciting things going on in the Bay region in the area of virtual production and post-production film editing. Some projects that are going to be happening, and also some partnerships that we have with Keycode Media to prepare our faculty and to get their students prepared for jobs in post-production film editing. So anyway, what we're going to do today is I'm going to just briefly introduce our two presenters, and then they will do presentations. They're going to talk about the jobs out there, and then they're going to talk about the opportunities that our students have for programs and courses and certificates that they can earn in some of our programs that are covering their two areas. And then at the end, we'll open it up for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be watching the Q&A, the chat box. Put any questions you have in the chat box. And then at the end of the both presentations, we will go check and see if anybody has any questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Koina Freeman, who is a visualization and cinematics artist. She's also the founder of the XR Lab and faculty lead at Laney. She has developed one of the first virtual production program in the region, which we're pretty excited about. And then Johnathon Amayo, who is going to start us off, actually, is the Chief Academic Officer at Keycode Media. And we're also in a partnership. Keycode Media is going to be providing some really exciting training for our faculty the week of June 6th, and some opportunities to get involved in some of the courses over the summer. And so he'll tell you about that. So Johnathon, why don't you kick it off? I'll stop sharing.
Hey everyone, as Olivia said, I'm Johnathon Amayo. I work with Keycode. Keycode is a reseller and integrator of film, TV, production, new media, everything. Churches, schools, studios, all over. Like, it's quite amazing. Like, my favorite thing they did was for Oscar de la Hoya's boxing gym. They built him a new revenue stream because he started recording his training and then started to sell that training online. And now that is the biggest part of his business, is the online video stuff. And I was just kind of like, you guys worked with Oscar de la Hoya? But a couple of years ago, they started a school and they asked me to come on board because I have years of experience working with schools. When we started our school, we were basically normally what we call a vocational school. And our main clientele students were people working in the industry. So either people based in Hollywood, we're based in Burbank, our headquarters of school, and they're based in Los Angeles. They now understand how the industry works, and they know that they need to take one class to learn a product to get that first job. Or we work with a lot of professionals, a lot of studios, a lot of TV shows where they want to get their staff better at working with new workflows or new technology, or just a whole new way of working with, going from offline to online only workflow is something we did with, there's this new documentary coming out with the Greek Freak. And that's a completely new, and we had to retrain the whole editorial staff on how to use this new software and work with files that are bigger. But my point in talking today is to talk a little bit about a couple of classes that we came up with a couple of years ago. And those classes are kind of based on my experience, which I'm going to talk a little bit about for a second. I don't want to bore you because I really am excited for the next presentation as well. I am excited to see virtual production because I don't get to touch it as much. My world is post-production, color, sound, editorial for feature film, for scripted television and unscripted television. I run a school, but I also work for a production company where my main job is to partner the production company with TV shows like Shondaland or Grey's Anatomy or SEAL Team, CBS Productions, and our job is to do their color, their sound. So we're, partner production. And so I work a lot in the industry, but I got my start not in the industry as far away as you can believe it. I actually started at a community college in high school and was taking a lot of production classes. And I knew I couldn't afford college. All my friends went to the University of Michigan, and I went into the military. Now, when I interviewed in the military, I was in the Air Force. They had a unit called Combat Camera, which is where I learned Avid. But to get into that unit, you had to have some kind of experience, and you kind of had to know it existed. So this is the first part of my career where my educational background all of a sudden made there were only 6 slots open for Combat Camera out of, like, I think 600 people in basic. And I was, it turned out, number one, because I had spent a year at the local community college in my high school taking production classes. And that gave me more experience than anyone else in the military. Now, I was really young, 18 years old. This is during the Clinton years, way before the dreads. And Avid was brand new, nonlinear editing. Before that, there was what they called linear editing, where it was tape, very archaic, tedious, boring. And I fell in love with this computer-based editing. I was a production guy, and then I became a post-production guy, because to me, computer-based editing was like using an Xbox. I got out of the military, and Avid hired me right away, and I worked in their education department for 5 years. And that's where I really got versed on teaching and working with different schools. Now, I left Avid and moved to LA and became an editor for 10 years. And this is where my first experience of the industry really changed how I wanted some of these classes to be designed. Our industry, or my industry, is not an industry that requires a degree. It's kind of like the computer industry. They really want to know what you did and what you can do. And in Hollywood, there's a very much an apprentice-based workflow for people coming within the town. You're never going to just become a director of a TV show. You're going to have to work your way up there. Now, you might make an independent film, that's something separate outside the system, and then sell it to the system and get lucky, but that's 1 in a million. If you're really going to work and make a living in the industry, you're going to work your way up, and that's to your benefit, so that you're not expected to make calls you're not ready to make, before your time, right? So I took a step into becoming an editor, and I wanted to be a big, feature film editor, but of course I didn't understand how it worked. And I ended up working for Fox promo division, and I actually did really well there, was like one of their lead editors. And E! News hired me a couple of years later, and I was an editor, then became a producer, editor, and I worked on this show that was horrible celebrity news called The Daily 10. This is actually when I quit editing, because at some point 10 years into editing, I realized this isn't what I wanted to edit. And I don't know how I got here, and I know that to go backwards is going to cost me a lot of money. And so I made changes in my career where I actually started to work for facilities, and that's when I started to work for production companies. And it turned out I enjoyed that more. I enjoyed producing and managing productions more than having to worry about the day-to-day creative decisions for every productions. And that was the second thing that changed my opinion. Now, I actually have taught at a bunch of different schools. I've run 2 different vocational schools. I've taught at AFI, and there's a school that's no longer in business that charged, I think, a 1-year program was like $30,000. And the goal of this program was literally the goal of our 2 classes, one of the 2 classes that we offer. And I remember teaching for them for this program thinking, these kids don't need to know all this to get their first job. Now, that is the key for these classes that we're going to talk about. Is they're not about making you Christopher Nolan, and I'm not about making you Steven Spielberg. I'm looking to get you your first job, your foot in the door, and that foot not being at Starbucks or DoorDash delivering, that a foot in a door that's relevant, so you can see how the industry works, so that you can work on a studio, so you can see how professionals deal with each other, how budgets come down the pipeline, how do they work with different departments. And there are, in my essential opinion, there were 2 basic roles you could take. And we actually have more classes, but we're going to explain why we focus on these 2 classes to begin with. And one is the assistant editing class. We have 4 versions of it, but the one that we're working with, because the most predominant editing software in Hollywood to this day is still Avid by about, I would say, 90% of every film and TV show is still Avid, mainly because Avid is better at sharing projects than anyone else. That's the only reason. Feature films, people use Adobe. Avid's just, it's boring, but it's sexy when you talk about managing projects, being able to have 300 editors work together. So this class not only teaches you not how to edit like a feature film, not how to cut your short film, not how to do all the fancy things you want to do when you use an editing system, because that's not what you'll do when you get your first job. Your first job will be organizing media, grouping it, transcoding it, ingesting it, working with other individuals, communicating. And so what this class does is not only focus on the hard skills, but the soft skills. Who are you supposed to be not schmoozing with, but working well with, like your editor? Who's going to hire you for your next job? Where do you have to go? What happens if you take a job in this direction or that direction? What will it do to your career? And then how do you become a feature film editor? Because that's actually quite hard. It's like starting a point guard in the NBA, right? It's not as easy. There are only so many feature films cut per year. Now, I was an editor. I loved editing, but funny enough, you know what I discovered is, one, I didn't like editing every bit of content I was told to edit. And two, I didn't always love editing with other people. An editor has to work with a producer and a director, and you're not in a vacuum. You're in a collaborative environment, and sometimes that didn't work for me. But I discovered too late that I loved producing, and a job that is the entry level job into becoming an actual Hollywood producer is something called a coordinator. Now, we focus the class on a particular type of coordinator, but there are 3 or 4 different types of coordinator in our industry. The post-production coordinator, excuse me, is a type of coordinator that essentially will lead you to a producing production job. The funny thing is, most people don't know this job exists. And I didn't know this job existed where I grew up. I didn't know this job existed when I got to LA. I didn't learn this job existed until I started working with the production companies. And then I'd work with a show like Scandal. And then at the most bottom level of their management is someone called a coordinator who sends all the emails to say, hey, I'm going to pick up these tapes. I'm going to drop off all these hard drives. And this, I'd see this person get promoted, and then their next step, which I've outlined in the next slide, why these two positions are so amazing and lead you to either what I like to think of as an artist operator or as a manager, mentor, producer. And that is the assistant editor, which can lead to online editors, which are people who they take the high-res versions of feature films and TV shows. They do color a lot of times, which is also a separate job. There is a desperate need for smart engineers within our industry because everything is moving to virtual machines. Obviously becoming a big-time editor, but there's different types of editors that we get into. Like, are you unscripted doing Housewives of Orange County, or are you scripted doing TV shows on ABC? And these require different things like unions, and we get into that in the class. VFX, which a lot of people love. And I'm not talking about VFX where in the virtual environment. I'm actually talking old school where they're doing compositing, layering, a particular type of VFX, mainly compositing, but actually probably there is some crossover here. And then colorist is a really interesting, cool job I didn't know existed. Somebody who works with the final image with the DP and the director to achieve the final look. For instance, in The Matrix, when everything is tinted green, or I'm trying to think of another film, but it's not coming to mind. Now, the post-production coordinator job is more leading towards management, and the first 2 steps are literally post-production coordinator, post-production supervisor, which is a job that starts to get you ready for the producing part. You actually are in charge of working with the colorist and the DP, coordinating and sitting in on that like picture review. Your job is also to essentially manage the editorial team day to day. The post-production producer's job is to manage the overall editorial team, hiring the editors, high-end editors, just like actors, have agents, because your salaries at that point, we're talking in the hundreds of thousands if you're cutting a show like Grey's Anatomy. And so there are different levels of salary. Now, you'll notice I listed salaries for starting in our industry, which is usually on average for unscripted, it's about 20 to 25, but on the high end, 35. And for post coordinators, between 20 and 25, but I've actually seen it go a little bit up. But I again, don't know for sure if it's changed that much. Anyways, at the point where you become a post-production producer, you start to get into this ethereal world where you become like a supervising producer, executive. Your job really doesn't change. They just pay you more money. But what really becomes interesting is I've had a couple of friends who have moved on from producing to film executives. One works at MRC, which is the studio that produces the morning show. And so she's like vice president of all post-production, and her job is hiring the producers now, not just hiring the editors. And so these jobs lead to these positions I, as a kid growing up in Detroit, Michigan, didn't even know existed. And it's just one of those things that if you're not in Los Angeles, you know, if you grew up with a parent in the industry, it's easy. But if you didn't, you know, our goal is to kind of show you what's behind the curtain. How do you get into these little areas, and what other areas are there? You know, that's something we discuss in the classes. Now, after the class, this is actually where, if you want to reach out to us when you graduate, there's a lot of cool things that are available to you, like subsidies and reimbursement for education if you join a union, i.e. MPEG 701, because Key Code works with all the unions. So my school will work with all of the unions. So let's say you take an initial class at college, you can take that class again and almost get it for free within our educational system, because once you're employed, once you work at one of these unscripted facilities, there are ways we're able to, California has prioritized our industry as what they call priority one. They don't want to, you know, they prioritize the agricultural, the aerospace. These are all priority one industries, meaning California cannot lose these to other states or countries like Toronto, Atlanta. And that means they're willing to take parts of the EDD fund, which is your unemployment, and put it back into your retraining so that you essentially can better your technical skills and creative skills. And so we have essentially partnered with the state of California so that we take advantage of all of that. So after college, when you're broke and you've got that first job, there's a way for you to continue to stay educated and get ahead of the game. And also, you know, talk to people in other industries. Maybe you don't like being an editor, but what's this about colorist or you know, producing or sound? I haven't even gotten into our sound programs or you know, so on and so forth. The last thing I'll do is just leave you with a little video of our company.
Hi, I'm Veronica Warner. I'm from Key Code Education.
Hi. Hey, Stefan Latour here, post coordinator.
Welcome to the second day of the AE boot camp.
I've been an editor for about 10 years.
So I've been in Hollywood for 20 years.
From producer to post supervisor to editors and assistant editors.
What do all of those things mean? Because they just sounded like a bunch of fancy words. We're going to get to that.
I didn't know anything about post. I was just like, I will learn so fast.
If you've never worked in the business, you don't know why you do these things.
So you have to keep all of that straight and where you are in all of those processes.
I recommend going to the lab at Key Code sometimes because it just feels like you're not screwing around.
Show you how to build skills, such as communicating effectively, how to craft a resume, how to walk an interview.
Especially if you're looking for a job in LA, there's so many people going out for the type of work that it definitely can help separate you out a little bit from the crowd.
If you actually want to work, I will push your resumes forward. There is always work to be had. It's just knowing the right people, connections, and how to get your foot in the door.
I was hanging on every word you said yesterday.
The thing is, you already possess tons of skills. You just need to learn how to package them up neatly to market yourself in the professional world.
I'm just excited to be able to help you all on your journey.
Bye.
The last thing I was just going to say is we've recently created, we're in the process of creating a new job board for everybody who's completed these courses, because one, we can't keep students who have taken the post coordinator class employed, meaning there's more of a demand for actual trained coordinators who know what they're doing than I have trained coordinators available. And two, with assistant editors, because of my position in the industry and others, colleagues of mine and coworkers, we realize if we have a centralized job boards of people who have taken this certification course, we can essentially help other companies see, hey, they have these sets of skills. They're guaranteed to know these sets of rules and be a proficient worker within your environment. So by the end of Q3, which is the end of the summer for normal people, we will have these new job boards, and I hope to be able to work with Olivia for any student, you know, within BACCCC, so that they would also be able to get listed on the job board as well. And that's basically all I have. And if anyone has any questions or anything like that, I'd, you know, love to answer.
Thanks, Jonathan. I've put the information about the training that BACC is funding for faculty across the region on, again, I keep forgetting the name of the tool. It's Media Composer, right?
Yep, avid media.
All right. And it's a train the trainer, and it starts June 6th. It's a week. And the cool thing about, if you participate in the faculty sign up and do this training, you'll have access not only to the courses during the summer that Key Code offers during the summer. You can audit any of the courses. And I just found out that those faculty that participate are going to be given a code that they can give their students who also want to audit those courses. And the reason that we're wanting to get this out there is that we're also looking for 3 colleges that want to pilot integrating the KCE curriculum into their curriculum. So anyway, the link there to sign up if you're interested is in the chat. And now I'm going to turn it over to Koina to talk about virtual production.
Great. So thank you for having me here. And it is such a pleasure, such an honor to share with you the exciting field of virtual production and game engines. Historically, we've known game engines to make games, an engine for games. And the 2 top game engines in the world are Unreal and Unity. But game engines do more than make games. And so you can make apps, mobile apps for your phone. You can make VR, virtual reality headset games and experiences. Augmented reality ones like Pokemon Go is made with a game app. And you can even make movies and television shows with a game engine. The #1 game engine really in the world to make TVs and movies and a lot of these large experiences is the Unreal Engine, as you can see the logo back there. And so that is my specialty, is making films, apps, and experiences using game engines. It is a fairly new field, and there's very few people out there in the world that can do it. And so now is the time to get into it and get trained doing it. So most people I meet want to make games. And then I say, okay, well, how long do you want to stand in line to try and get in the door to a game studio and make a game? Because you're competing with everyone around the world who also wants to make games. However, there is a side door and a back door where you can make as much, if not more money, working using the same tools, same technology, working in studios, doing creative stuff. You're just simply not making a game. You're making a movie, a TV show, an experience, right? Or concert or music video. And so most people say, okay, now I'm kind of interested. Tell me more. So what I'm going to do is I want to share my screen with you and just sort of give you sort of a peek into the world of virtual production. So I'm just going to start off by just sort of giving you sort of an intro as to what is virtual production, what is it, and then we're going to sort of dive into it. And so what is virtual production? Well, virtual production is actually where the physical world and digital worlds meet. And we first kind of saw that with the avatar. And as you can see here, I'll just give you a little bit of sound to this.
Nature of this film, with this alien clan, this alien culture, we had a choice. We could do it with makeup, like it's always been done, rubber appliance makeup. It would have looked horrible and it would have been boring and stupid and, kind of blue actors running around in the rainforest in their underwear, and a bunch of blue body paint. It would have looked terrible. And I wasn't interested in that. If I was going to do this, I wanted to do it this way, which is with performance capture.
But before he could do that, Cameron first had to make sure his technology could cross what's known in robotics and animation as the uncanny valley.
Let's say this is an absolute human, and this is a, kind of a talking moose. As you approach human, our attraction to the character goes down. And then at the last second, just when you get to a true human look, it goes back up. Well, we needed to get on the far side of that dip in the response curve, which is called the uncanny valley. And we needed to get to the opposite side where we believed We don't have to necessarily believe that it's 100% photoreal, and we don't have to necessarily believe that they actually exist, but we have to believe in them as emotional creatures. And so we came up with the head rig. We call it the head rig. It's basically just a kind of helmet, very tight conformal kind of skull cap that's based on a life cast of the actor's head and a laser scan. So it fits very tightly and smoothly and comfortably. And then, you know, there's a carbon fiber boom that comes out with a little camera on the front of it. And that camera shoots the face in a nulled out close-up. So even though the actor's moving all around, running, jumping, yelling, screaming, jumping off stuff, jumping over logs, you know, running flat out, whatever, we're getting that facial performance absolutely locked off.
And from that, they were able to record every facial movement, from the actor's lips to their eyes.
And that proved to exactly be the kind of holy grail approach to how to do CG faces, not the stuff that they had done before, which is what we call marker-based. We're now image-based. We got the best animators in the world to take all this data that was coming out of our performance captures, and then we limited their options to things that were value added, like the ears and the tails. So they took a human performance with no diminishment whatsoever, and then added to it. So when people ask me, you know, sort of what percentage of the actor's performance came through in the final character, I say 110%, because you actually had an increase in the sense of whatever the emotionality of the moment was.
For Discovery News, I'm Jorge Ribas.
So that's sort of an example of where we started really with virtual production. It's where the physical and digital worlds sort of meet. And as you can see, they're wearing these body suits that with these little white dots on here, look like pearls, are recording their every movement. So that's the data that's being recorded. And then that data is being fed into a game engine. And then so the director, in this case, James Cameron, as you can see, is looking at both at the top screen, the actual footage of actors in these body suits performing, and then what it looks like being fed into a 3D world through a game engine on the bottom screen. So the different use cases for virtual production are virtual sets, a 3D world, VR scouting, which I'll go a little bit dip into a little bit further on, but that's where you actually put on a VR headset, and the director can scout in that world and say, okay, where do I want to put the camera? Do I want to put the camera inside the waterfall or outside the waterfall or in the treehouse or on top of the treehouse? Because it's all a digital world, and they can scout that location as if they were on the top of the Eiffel Tower in one scene, or a cave in the bottom of the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest part of the entire world that we know and have recorded. All of that is digital and virtual, and you could do that in a headset in just moments. Pre-visualization, which allows filmmakers or engineers or architects to sort of pre-visualize the scene or the building they're going to build or an arena they're going to build, or an automobile before they build it, before they commit all their resources to it. They're using 3D models to visualize it beforehand. In-camera VFX, which is where you're actually shooting your movie on the set using the 3D engine right there as you're making it. Another new and exciting field, which is digital humans, which I'll get into that a little bit. And then final renders, where you're actually just finishing the film actually on set. And the only thing you have to do in post-production is to send it to somebody like our dear friend here, who just showed us about post-production, and have an editing and post-production team edit it. But you don't have to spend millions of dollars fixing the mistakes you made on set. Again, an example that we saw this is about a year ago, we saw Katy Perry did a production of, about 2 years ago, on American Idol with her music video called Daisies. And it used the technology of augmented reality and mixed reality, which is also a part of what virtual production is. And so we're starting to see this. In fact, there's a TV show on Fox where people are not the costume ones, but where they're these 3D avatars performing. That is using the Unreal Engine and virtual production. Why are we here? Why is virtual production such a big deal? Because this is a paradigm shift. So what you had before, if you were going to, whoops, sorry, I mean to go back. Let me go back to that. If we were going to shoot in an environment that looked like this in the real world, let me make this larger, sorry. In the real world, this would be a very expensive shoot to do, to go to some alley, maybe in Asia or Hong Kong, and dress this setup like we were in some Southeast Asian cyberpunk type of world. It costs millions of dollars to block off streets and shoot something like this, or on a back lot, on a studio lot in Hollywood. It would cost a lot of money to build this out. We are now at a point where the digital 3D world looks as good as actually creating a real world. This one was done in Unity. And so we are what is called a tipping point in terms of budget. You can now do incredible things you couldn't do before. Now you can do them with virtual production. This is an example of the VR scouting, and using, again, a 3D world. Then you put on a headset, you go in and you can scout, you know, am I going to put a couple of actors on the sofa having a conversation, somebody cooking dinner on the, you know, and setting the dinner table. And so the virtual world can look as good as a real world sets. That is what is making, part of what is making the difference in people wanting to make the move to 3D. And so this is just an example of 3D scouting an environment, right? Because you can take this environment and you can actually, using virtual production, put real people in this environment and shoot a scene, or put digital people in this environment and shoot a scene. And so to that end, I actually want to show you, this blew everybody away. This just came out a week ago. And I'm gonna let it play for a minute and then I'll explain why it was such a big deal. So this is of a train station in Japan. And it's like somebody shot this with their cell phone as they're walking through this train station in Japan. And you know, he said, well, just kind of basic train station. I don't think there's anything all that special about it. You know, what's the big deal? Well, you'll see in a second. This is 3D. Nothing you're looking at is real. This entire environment was made inside of Unreal Engine. This is why virtual production is taking off. This entire scene is done in a game engine. No cameras, no crew. Nobody went to Japan and shot this. These people took some pictures that they saw of this train station, and inside of Unreal, not an outside 3D modeling expensive program, inside the game engine, they built this entire set and then shot it to make it look like they were shooting with a cell phone, to give it an even more realistic look. But you've got the moisture on the steps, you've got light bouncing off the walls, which is global illumination, which is sort of the holy grail of lighting in a 3D world. As you can see, this looks very real, very natural. But you've got global illumination, light coming through the windows, bouncing off the stairs. Again, this is the holy grail of 3D lighting, is global illumination. And this is something that the Unreal Engine does better than any game engine in the world. They are masters of this. So this, when you ask, why is this becoming a big deal? Why is this important? It seems like this that say to studio heads, to directors, to filmmakers, I don't have to get a $50,000 camera with a $20,000 lens and go and bring a crew and shoot in a train station in Japan. I could sit at my computer in my pajamas and make this in one game engine. Oh boy, this just changes everything. So that's when we talk about virtual sets. So there are 3 types of virtual production. Which type is right for you? Then, so we have the all CG, which is just sitting down at your computer, like the one I just showed you, the one that person did at the train station. This is again an example of all in computer, all in boxes, they call it. And you will recognize the characters from Fortnite because Unreal Engine is owned and created by Epic Games, the same people that bring you Fortnite, also bring you the #1 game engine in the world that they let people use for free. They don't charge anybody. They let you use it for free. So it's an amazing company that would do what they are doing. Second version of the next step up from just being completely in a box. As when I say box, I'm referring to a computer. And usually the best to get the best results, you want to be on a PC, and you can do a lot of this work with a gaming laptop, an Alienware, or Razer, but you can do this on a gaming laptop. So the next step up is green screen, because again, I said there are 3 different versions, and what you're going to see is, I just keep clicking that wrong link there. What you're going to see in these 4 different windows here, let me go here, and green screen. This is one human actress in a room with a green wall, with some green walls. In the bottom corner are some more of these actors sitting on some green squares, blocks, chairs, and the camera. This is a robotic camera. In the top screen is what you're seeing when you're looking, or the director's looking through his Unreal Engine window. So he has composited the green screen world into and feeding that into the Unreal Engine, and we are now compositing this image with the girl. And then the bottom one is the final composition, everything put together. And so we'll just watch this is a very short video, and you can get a kind of understanding of the second level or the second type of virtual production. Now, what's important to note is that kid is really, this is the real world. He's just sitting on a green box, pretending to be a bench. That's brought into the game engine. And in the game engine, this train is a 3D train. It's not a real train, but it is being composited real time as they're shooting. They don't have to do this after the whole production is done. They're doing it and seeing it as it is being shot. And this is what the director and everyone that's watching this on a camera is seeing. And then you've got an Unreal Engine operator that is sort of finessing the composite. And that's the final version down there. So now we can just sort of watch this. And there you see the film crew, the stage crew, that is, this guy's controlling, probably controlling the robotic arm and watching this. But again, here is the girl just sitting in a green room on some green boxes. But this is what is showing up inside of, on the top right corner is what is the director and the crew is seeing inside the game engine. And this is the bottom right is what is actually what was screened or was broadcast on television. And so this is another form of virtual production, and there's our crew, because this is a stage. So there's the crew back there. So, which is just really amazing. So the next we have is, the last one is The Mandalorian. And that is the sort of the king of virtual production. Again, all of these are being done in the Unreal Engine. So we're gonna just watch a few minutes of this. This is a behind the scenes out on the ILM set, which is the one of the largest virtual production sets in North America, if not the world, and definitely the sort of the pioneers of virtual production. What is important to know is this is being run on through a game engine, just like I showed you with the others, the same game engine. So when you know how to do one, you know how to do all. So let's just take a look at this.
All right, here we go. Thank you. And background action.
The tech is amazing because it allows you to do things that even if you were on location, you couldn't control to that degree.
Action! I was immediately struck by just the quality of light. As opposed to a stage with blue screens or green screens, you're immediately in that environment.
Because the second season, they built a bigger volume, it allowed the show to feel all the more epic.
I like when visual effects fool you in a way that you don't even know you were fooled.
Jon Favreau brought his vision for a new way of filmmaking, providing filmmakers with flexibility to innovate, create, collaborate, and get final pixel content in real time in a soundstage.
For season 2, there was a number of areas we wanted to improve.
By the second season, ILM developed some software that was...
So let me just explain what you're looking at here. You are looking at, let me see if I can get back to that stage again. Let's see, where was it?
Number of areas we wanted to improve.
By the second...
Okay, this is a virtual production stage. This is not a black wall with the word Huckleberry painted on it. This is a massive LED screen, not unlike what you have on your flat TV screens on your wall, except that these are hundreds of extremely high-end LED screens, all nestled and nested on top of each other. So you see the ceiling as well as the walls. So what you are doing is you're standing inside of a big LED bowl. And those images are being projected in real time on the screen.
Second season, ILM developed some software that was specific to this technology and to what the hardware was capable of.
Visual effects is becoming real time. We're always developing stagecraft to get better and more powerful and more flexible. Today.
So what's interesting is that's a real truck, but everything in the foreground is an LED screen and on the walls, on the side. So it makes you think you're in a real tunnel, but you're actually not. You're inside that LED
I'm
bowl.
particularly excited to be rolling out Stagecraft 2.0. Stagecraft really is an end-to-end solution. And almost every feature that's in
Each one of these blue lights is one of those screens, those LED screens, and there are hundreds of them. And so that is why this volume costs them upwards of $100 million. It's very expensive to do. But once you've done it, you can pretend you're in Morocco 1 minute and Paris the next and Mars the next after that. That is part of the allure and the profitability and the advantage of doing virtual production.
feature that's in there now came about because of a specific filmmaker request. Unparalleled rendering power at incredible resolution, both on the walls and on the ceiling.
We've essentially built a platform that we can continue to build upon, from scouting to virtual cameras, motion capture performance, and finally LED volume content.
So whether it's...
So in this case, these are real human actors. There's some props they're playing with in the foreground here, but everything back there where you see the water, the pier, and it looks like a pier out in the distance, everything behind this sort of that cloth wall, that's all just the LED. That's all LED. The only thing that's real is the stuff here with the humans in costumes and a few props, the light posts, but everything behind them is LED from the Unreal game engine.
the color pipeline, or the CG rendering, or the software or the hardware, because we are bringing that whole package together with all that experience, we've been able to solve those problems quickly and get to shooting.
It also has forced us into having a more efficient workflow that draws pre-production, post-production, and production all into one continuous pipeline.
When you write and you shoot and you direct, you get so inspired by being on an actual location. That's where you come up with most of your shots. What's wonderful about this system is everyone's on the same page.
We now had the capability to grab hold of any tree in a forest, of which there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and move them around independently to reset dress on the day based upon what we were seeing through the camera.
Even though the set has not been built, it's built virtually, but we're physically there, and it feels like you're really walking through the space.
It inspires the actors, inspires the filmmaker to now see what they're shooting. You know, it's like painting with the lights on finally.
Everybody knows what something looks like, how the sequence is going to be put together, where the camera should go. It's all worked out in advance.
For me to be flying around virtually, all the different locations, real and virtual, sets the...
So that is virtual scouting, just what he's talking about now. He's got on, in this case, an Oculus Quest, and it's scouting around this virtual location. And if you listen carefully, he's explaining what he does.
All worked out in advance.
For me to be flying around virtually, all the different locations, real and virtual, sets that we're going to build and non-sets that we're just going to be on the volume with John, who's in LA and I'm in Austin, and we're going and checking it out together. It's like when we get to shooting, you're not even shooting. It feels like you're reshooting.
You can really, on the day, focus on performance and getting those shots in a really efficient way. As a director, that's what you dream about.
In the past, we would have computer models, or we would have miniatures, or sometimes we'd have photography on set. We can now take all of those things and throw them in together. We can go LiDAR something, we can go on location and fly a drone over some mountains and throw all of that stuff in the mix.
In addition to providing higher quality, using stagecraft can save your production money and time, because otherwise you would have to execute all of this work in a post-production period.
And there are certain shots where you have live action in the foreground, you have a miniature shoot that was texture mapped onto the geometry of a digital environment in the wall, and then in the deep background are stop motion figures that are moving around. So you have all of these different layers of techniques that all come together to hopefully feel like one combined environment, and all of it in real time.
So I will drop the link for that into the chat, and you can check out the whole thing. It's just, I just think it's absolutely fantastic, and hopefully you do as well. So as we're finishing up, those are the three kinds of virtual production, and I wanted to show you a little example of a digital human, because I did mention that. And
a digital human group is a group, a digital domain that's dedicated to sort of developing brand new technologies around creating the most realistic, photoreal digital humans and creatures.
Over the last 10 years, we have been working on facial animation, trying to create the most realistic facial animation for feature films.
And the thing that's really started to change in the last few years is just some of the research into sort of deep learning, AI, and something we're sort of very actively involved in. Instead of, let's create a series of face shapes, put them into a rig, then animate the rig, see what the rig can do, you can capture the ways their face automatically moves, that's really them, from a single camera, recreate their face in very, very high resolution, automatically train these systems to recognize, understand, and recreate a face without us having done any decomposition or compression or losing what really makes their amazing performance. And now we're able to do it, not in like weeks or months like before, like now we're able to do it instantaneously. Now it's getting fast enough that we could start to do real-time, very highly realistic performing faces, which is amazing.
Going to Unreal was a bit of a no-brainer, actually. We looked at the various frameworks that were out there. Unreal, Unity, Crytek, and Unreal seemed to have some of the best shading models out there, had really good performance. Once you go to Unreal, you also have a tier of platforms that it runs on, so that we don't have to worry about porting it to something else. We're in constant dialogue with Epic, and they're helping us a ton with the skin shading models, how to deal with the hair, how to deal with all the little details.
We're not done yet. We really do believe soon we'll be able to sort of really match that same quality in real time that we were getting on feature films.
I like to think about it as, if I'm interacting with this character, can I tell whether or not this character is lying? If I can see that in the character's eyes and in the character's face, then we've won. We're not there yet, right? There's a lot of subtlety in the face that we still need to capture.
So one of the areas that we're really the most excited about is this whole avenue of virtual production. We've only just started doing some of that on sets, where we've been able to sort of, in a more offline way, give an actor an example of what their character is going to look like. But this becomes a hugely powerful tool for them because they can really see what their performance is going to look like and how it's going to translate. But now, what if we could do that live and on set with the actors, with the directors and everybody? It's all coming. It's important for people to understand what very, very soon is going to be possible with some of this new technology.
I gotta admit that to walk around myself in VR, it's almost philosophically odd.
So again, that is also virtual production, digital humans, something you're going to see and hear a whole lot more about, not just with the metaverse, but many other technologies as well. And so the future, as we get to the end of this year, the future, the metaverse and beyond. I just thought that this would be very cool for you to see is, let me see if I've got the right one here. So in 2021, the fall of 2021, Balenciaga decided to build their showcase, their fall showcase, their fall collection in the Unreal game engine. And here's a little trailer of it. And again, in the Unreal Engine. And so let me just drop that link in there for anybody who would like to sort of check that out as well. You know, where these things are going. I mean, it's not just games, it's not just movies, it's not just fashion. I mean, it's just, it goes on and on and on. And so the, you know, I click on. So this was a tie-in, a partnership, a collaboration between Epic Games, Balenciaga, and Fortnite and Unreal. And so this, you know, give you this sort of metaverse tie-in and where this is all going, because when you learn how to work in a game engine, you also learn how to, you know, build these worlds and metaverses. What kind of jobs are there available? There are many career fields inside of virtual production, from cinematographers to technical artists, producers, directors, animators. Basically, any job you find on a physical film set or shoot, you will find in virtual production. But also basically any job you're going to find at an automotive design studio, an architecture firm, a construction firm. You're going to find these also in game engine. And what kind of starting salaries are we seeing? Well, I can say that let's see, starting 40,000 for a technical artist or an environmental artist. But I can say that one of my students was just recently hired by Meta, also known as Facebook, after taking 1.5 of my classes, because I lost her halfway through the second class, and she's starting at 90,000 a year. I just finished working on a virtual production film in Hollywood, and our intern was hired from the set starting at $90,000 a year. So, you know, there are not a lot of people that know how to do these jobs. And let me drop the link in for, let me see. I'll try to, let me drop the link in for our website that at Laney, because we have one of the first virtual production certificates in the state, one of the first in the nation. This is our website. Let me just drop that link into the chat. We're just completing first semester of our virtual production certificate, and our students are making really fantastic short films. In the fall, we'll be actually on set on Laney doing a virtual production. And we have green screen and our cameras. And this is our sort of our certificate here. It's 4 courses, as you can see, and you can check this out on your own time. Like I said, will be it's a 2-semester certificate, 4 courses, 2 semesters, and you will have portfolio pieces and entree to the industry, because the job demand is very, very high. And I know that I've taken too much of your time, so I'm gonna just stop here, because I could go on and on, because this is such an exciting field. And this is an opportunity to change your life. If this is an opportunity to get into industries that you thought you could never get in, be a part of, this is an opportunity to be the one that people are searching for, and not beating on someone's door, begging for a way in. Every morning I wake up, literally in my inbox, I get offers, people asking me to offers for jobs. And I simply just teach the stuff. So it can be the same for you once you learn this new technology. It's free to learn. All you got to do is put your heart and your mind into it, and you can, walk onto a Mandalorian set or Tesla factory. I mean, every single automotive company is hiring for Unreal operators for virtual production. It's everywhere, and it's an opportunity for you to walk into very high-paying jobs and be in demand. So thank you for letting me share a little bit of virtual production with you, and I hope you will come study with us or go on to the Unreal portal and teach yourself, because you can. You could go to the Unreal online learning portal and do tutorials. There are groups that you can join, videos that you can watch on TV. But if you want someone to walk you through and guide you through, then come and study with us and learn how to do this and learn how to make real money. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you both, and before we close, and we are going to just take a little bit because we got a late start, so we'll take just another minute or two. Both of you mentioned some very key points, that I really think would be important to, students interested in getting into this field. Johnathon, you talked about apprenticeships. Koina, you talked about internships. It sounds like maybe in Johnathon, in the part of the industry that you're working, it's unionized. Maybe you can comment on that. And then Koina, how do people get into internships? So Johnathon, let's start with you. I mean, you mentioned apprenticeships. Is that something that if our programs here in the community, Bay Area community colleges, need to either create apprenticeships, or are there partnerships for apprenticeships?
No, I think the industry has kind of already created a catch-all where in order to get into the union, you have to work at non-union facilities or shows, which are essentially low production, unscripted TV shows. And so you can come I've had, I had a 19-year-old who had no training in the industry whatsoever. We trained him in the class, had him take 2 classes. He got an unscripted job. And now, he's now an editor on a big unscripted TV show. He never went scripted, but he did get into the union and is, like 3 years later, I don't think making 90,000, but maybe, I don't know. I didn't ask him, but I think that he's doing very well. And so our industry has a really nice, non-unionized aspect of it that actually, when you work at those facilities and companies, they count towards getting union hours. And so you essentially, you pay your dues, quote unquote, working ununion to get into the union, which are the better paying, more sophisticated, jobs with crafts our, what do you call it, craft services, with food and gyms, memberships and stuff like that. And so, no, it's definitely worth it.
So that sounds like a path for a lot of our apprenticeships. What about internships? I mean, Koina, you mentioned internships in virtual production. Can you tell us more about that, or are there
Sure. Sure. So yes, a lot of Hollywood is absolutely union, especially when you talk about movies, Mandalorian. You have independent productions that tend to not be union, and then you have studio productions which are absolutely union. However, here's the thing is, at this point, I am consulting, I can't say which unions, but I'm consulting unions in training their membership. So here I am, somebody who was not, didn't make it into the union. I did direct for television, but it was the way the contract was written, we were not union members as the directors for the show I was on. But here I am now, several years later, I'm actually consulting and training union members on virtual production.
But how would someone get in? Is it like what Johnathon's talk about? You start as an intern on a non-union, or I mean, how do you get in?
Right. So first of all, it is a little bit different when it comes to virtual production, and because the demand is so off the charts. When I speak to people there, and I'm like, okay, well, can I get my students in as interns? Or like, do they know the engine? And I said, well, they're there. And he said, well, we'll just hire them as a production assistant or entry level, and then just train them up the rest of the way to go. Because one, internships become a very sticky issue because unions make internships a sticky issue. And so there's a lot of legal issues around internships, and the state of California makes it difficult. So the better word is apprenticeships. So there are, I can say that I know that there are apprenticeships being built because I'm actually consulting on the development of apprenticeship programs for virtual production in the industry. And so what I'm finding is that people are like, look, either just apply for an entry-level position, even if you're still in college, if you've got the skills and you know how to use Unreal Engine, you don't have to be expert level, but if you know something, you know more than we do. So apply as a production assistant, entry level, look for positions, say junior technical artist, junior environment artist, junior Unreal specialist or Unreal generalist. That tends to be an entry-level position. What they want to see, they want to see a portfolio piece. So something on you that you've got one or two pieces, don't put anything mediocre on, put your best foot forward. So if you've got 10 mediocre pieces and one good one, then only put one good one on your portfolio that shows you know how to do something in Unreal, a short film, 30 seconds long, an environment that you've built out, a scene that you lit. You could get a scene off the Unreal Marketplace where you then get it, and then you show the before, what it looks like without lighting, and then you light it and show off your lighting, because you may want to specialize in being a lighting artist, or you get a scene and you animate some characters, running through it or having a conversation. So, that's what they want to see. Portfolio piece, one or two portfolio pieces that show that you have a grasp of the game engine. And that is enough to get you into an entry-level position. And entry-level positions are like $40K. If you are, the better you are at the engine, your value and your price just goes up.
And it sounds like, both from what I heard from Johnathon and you, Koina, is that our programs include helping our students package themselves, put together their portfolios, etc. Okay.
No, we go through that in the class. We make sure that here are the different, and what happens if you take the wrong step, what could happen, and how it could change your career. But not that it's bad. Obviously, we all take different steps we didn't plan. But yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
I wanted to make sure that we close with that question. Vina, thank you for joining us.
yes.
I just wondered if you had any comments or questions.
Oh, my pleasure. No, it was all very interesting. And I hope people sign up for our classes. Registration is open for the fall at Laney.
All right.
Yes.
Well, great. I want to thank the both of you for your time and really for actually doing the recording for this. I knew we were going to have probably a low attendance because of the timing of the semester, but I tell you, I really think that this is, when we archive this, I'm going to ask our marketing person to say, hey, you got to check this out if you want to get these kind of jobs. We'll get this in front of the folks. So anyway, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And this was just really, really interesting stuff. I really hope that we can really, get this buzz out there.
Yes.
You're here.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you all. It was a great show.